Conria was once obsessed with beings from other planets, aliens. So much so that they built an orphanage meant to take in these alien children. They did this in hopes of finding a descender. You see, Conria had grown deeply dissatisfied with the world's current order, and they wanted to overthrow it. In normal in-game language, outlander can just mean someone from another nation, but it's also used to describe true outsiders to Teyvat, aliens, space travelers, beings from another world. Not to be confused with a descender. A descender is strictly a being who can transcend Teyvat's laws and affect its fate, and so far there are only 4 of them. So today I want to go through all the aliens in Genshin Impact, starting with the most canon and then moving toward the ones that are unconfirmed but still possible. Let's start with the most obvious first. Aether and Lumine. The twins are the clearest example of true aliens in all of Genshin. They came from an unnamed planet from outer space, a world that was home to the Teyvat flowers. They were originally the rulers of their planet, essentially royalty. At some point, their world was destroyed by a star-devouring darkness, possibly the Abyss. After that, the twins escaped in their spaceship and began traveling to different planets. While they were in cryosleep, their journey lasted long enough that numbers had lost their meaning, long enough for them to witness the birth and death of stars. At one point, thousands of years ago, their ship passed over Teyvat and left. Much later, it returned and crash-landed at Starsand Shoal in Nodcry, something Conrian researchers are said to have witnessed. Then comes the rest of the story we know. One twin becomes the traveler we play as, the other becomes Conria's adopted royal heir, and later the prince/princess of the Abyss Order.
We interrupt this lore spiral to bring you news from today's sponsor.
Today's video is sponsored by Goddess of Victory, Nikke. Nikke is a free-to-play anime sci-fi RPG shooter on PC and mobile, where you play as a commander leading a squad of Nikkes against the Raptors to reclaim the surface. And for its 3.5 anniversary, Nikke is going all in. Commanders can get 4 free copies of SSR Nikke Avistar, plus up to 160 free pulls. But the real centerpiece is the new Star Anise story event. If you know Anise, you know she's been with players from the beginning as part of counters. Now, after over 1,200 days, she's stepping into the spotlight as the Ark's brightest star. Star Anise follows her comeback at the TT Star Comeback Concert with a more emotional story about her past, her dreams, and what it means to return to the stage. There are full live performance animations for all Eyes on Me and Be My Stars, original idol tracks, and even a rhythm minigame called Tracing the Stars, where you play through TT Star's debut stage yourself. On top of that, Anise and Neon both arrive with new overspec upgrades. There are new idol-themed costumes and new campaign chapters pushing the main story forward. So if you've been curious about Nikke, now is genuinely the time. Play for free on PC and mobile using the link in the description and pinned comment down below. Thank you so much, Goddess of Victory Nikke, for sponsoring today's video. After them, the next major confirmed alien is Skirk. What makes Skirk so interesting is that her story gives us one of the first real glimpses of what life on another planet in Genshin's universe was actually like. She came from an unnamed world whose people had adapted to survive in conditions that shouldn't have supported life. At some point, a merchant ship from a neighboring planet arrived. Her people welcomed them peacefully, but once those outsiders studied the planet and its inhabitants, they realized Skirk's people had an unusual ability to adapt to all kinds of environments and energy sources, including conditions related to the Abyss. That was enough for them to decide these people were a major threat, so they wiped out the entire planet. Skirk's village was destroyed, she was badly injured, and she was left for dead. Then she woke up beside a fire with a beast and a man. That man was Sir Delogi. He saved her, revealed powers her people didn't even know they had, and trained her into the fighter we know today. Skirk's story makes the wider universe feel so much darker. Teyvat isn't alone in space. There are other civilizations out there, and some of them are fully willing to destroy an entire planet before its inhabitants ever even become dangerous. Then there's the Heavenly Principles. The Heavenly Principles is the first descender. That means the very power now ruling Teyvat and controlling its fate is alien. The Heavenly Principles descended during the era when the ancient dragons ruled the world under Nibelung. After arriving, they created the 4 Shades, defeated the dragon sovereigns, reshaped the world, and established the new human order. Next is Sutervoinen, one of the most fascinating aliens on this list. Sutervoinen is literally a voyager from the Sea of Stars, Genshin's term for outer space. Her real body is sleeping in a distant celestial construct while her consciousness travels across the cosmos, observing world after world as civilizations nations rose and died. She wasn't supposed to interfere with anything on any planet she visited. She was only supposed to watch. Then she sensed Nibelung's presence on Tevat and was moved enough to contact him, warning him that his world was doomed and urging him to leave with her. Nibelung refused. Later, when she returned, the world had changed. The heavenly principles had taken over, Nibelung was gone, and Tevat was already under a different order. So Surturvoinen cast her consciousness into the body of a boy in Hyperborea. Through this vessel, she debated priests, challenged their ideas of sin, and eventually met Koitar, the first angel, under the Irminsul tree. There, she revealed her true origin as a voyager from outer space. Koitar fell in love with her. The two of them dreamed of a world where nations, gods, and mortals could live without the fear of the heavenly principles. And for a time, they tried to guide Hyperborea toward that dream. They led a rebellion against Celestia, but were severely punished. Hyperborea was destroyed, the Seelies were cursed, and the couple was separated with their memories erased. Next is the all-devouring narwhal. Yes, the whale absolutely counts. The all-devouring narwhal is a creature from another world. Therefore, it is an outlander. When Child fell into the abyss as a child, he awakened it. At some point after that, it ended up in Tevat and began feeding on the primordial sea, which helped trigger the flood crisis in Fontaine. It later crashed Farina's trial, fought Child, and was eventually defeated before Skirk showed up and trapped it. Then there's Aloy. Aloy is a special case because she's technically crossover content with Horizon Zero Dawn, but within Genshin's own official material, she's still presented as an outlander. Hoyoverse introduces her as savior from another world. So even if she's not involved in the main plot, she's still an alien. Aloy's own story comes from a far future Earth where human civilization collapsed and machine creatures came to dominate the planet. She was raised as an outcast, became a hunter, and later learned the truth of her past. Now we get to a name that might be familiar to you, especially if you're an Arlecchino fan. Pinhary. Pinhary comes from the book Pinhary, which presents itself as an anthological work based on an old Conrian legend. The book itself admits there's no one left who can fully verify the story, so we don't know if he was a real person or based on a real person at all. However, I still think it's worth including him in this list. In the story, Conria during the Crimson Moon Dynasty had become a place where things from outside this world could leak in. A sage convinced the ruler to establish an orphanage for those children from outer space, hoping one of them might become a being capable of transcending the gods, a descender. Pinhary is one of those alien children. The story even raises the possibility that he came from a destroyed world. His first memory is one of the creepiest things in Genshin lore. He crawls through a dark passage, reaches the end, and is then asked if he is dead. When he finally says yes, he then sees a vision of the Crimson Moon turning into a giant eye. The adults then tell him he has traversed the fire of two worlds and been reborn. So yes, we can assume Pinhary is an alien. And if this story is truly a record of Conria's history, then Conria may have known about far more aliens than the game has openly revealed so far. Now we move on to the characters who are not confirmed outlanders, but have a pretty high chance of being one. First is Alice. Alice is one of the strongest candidates so far. She's the founder of the Hexenzirkel, one of the most absurdly knowledgeable people in Tevat, and most importantly, Klee's mother. She is also the sustainer of the world's borders, meaning her current job is tied directly to the border that keeps Tevat separate from outer space. In Wings of the Feasting, she talks about how the KFC collab gliders drifted to Tevat from another world, and describes a world that sounds strangely similar to ours. So at the very least, Alice clearly knows about worlds and other planets beyond Tevat. She might even have first-hand experience with them. But as of recording this video, the game still hasn't directly said that Alice herself was born outside Tevat or is an alien. So for now, I just consider her a strong candidate for being an alien. And honestly, her husband Kleiner has more of a chance to be an alien than she does. Kleiner doesn't have any screen time, but what the game says about him is pretty insane. Alice says he was delayed by troublesome happenings on another planet, and after jumping through all those hoops to make it back to Tevat, new trouble started again with the Tore and Nodcry. Venti then adds that being a seeker is a tough job. Kleiner is someone who travels between planets constantly. However, we still don't know whether he was born on another planet, or was originally from Teyvat and became a space traveler later. But either way, he's one of the strongest current candidates to be an Outlander. Then there's Octavia. Octavia is another Hexen Circle member who goes by the codename O. She has apparently seen many worlds and told many tales about the sky beyond the sky. Her home was destroyed, and instead of fighting back, she took up a life of endless wandering. She's also the creator of the Milliastra Wonderland. Again, not confirmed that she's an Outlander or alien, but she too has a strong chance to be one. And finally, I want to end on 2 honorary mentions. The first is Sirtologi. Sirtologi is Skirk's master and one of the infamous 5 sinners of Conria. Currently, he's a space traveler. But even with all that, current lore seems to point more toward him being from Teyvat, more specifically Conria. So while he absolutely messes with things in outer space, he's not confirmed to be an Outlander. I personally think he has a low chance of being one, but I'll still keep the door to the alien theory open. The second is Arlecchino. I used to think Arlecchino might be an Outlander because of how closely her story relates to Pinhary and Conria's Crimson Moon era. For now, she looks more so tied to Conria itself. Even though parts of Arlecchino's origin are still a mystery, especially her direct lineage and how she ended up being taken in by the House of the Hearth, the lore currently points much more strongly to her being a descendant of the Crimson Moon dynasty and not a being from another world. And that's also why I'm not putting beings like LNS or Durin in the main list here. They're absolutely not normal Teyvat life forms, but I think they're more so abyssal creations than real aliens. So where does that leave us? If we keep this list strict, the confirmed aliens are Aether, Lumine, Skirk, the Heavenly Principles, Sutervoinen, the All-Devouring Narwhal, Aloy, and maybe Pinhary. And there could be way more considering Conria might have been home to aliens at one point. So the real question is, how many more are still out there? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm your leafy lore keeper Minsleif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to.